Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Journey Within. I am your host, Andrea Escobar Logreda, spiritual guide and mental health intuitive. Each week, we get to connect with different visionaries, healers, and storytellers as they walk us through their journey within, dark night of the soul experience that took them out of that autopilot and empowered them to go inward. We are here today with the one and only Lisa Levine. Lisa, after graduating film school in NYU, which is a dream, landed her dream job. And then fast forward, Lisa was living in Seattle, married with 2 kids, had her own thriving business, and at around 50, decided to switch out of all of that and into a Martha Beck Institute certified life coach and health coach. So we're in for a real treat today. Lisa just published her book, Midlife No Crisis, which, hey, that's awesome. An audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond. And she's here today to talk to us about her transformative journey and how it's never too late to find your passion, live with audacious purpose, and become the woman you were meant to be. I can't wait to dive in.
You got it.
Welcome, Lisa.
Hello. Happy to be here. Yes, there were so many. I was just listening to you tell that story. You know, I'm 57. There were so many times in my life where I had to kind of stop and go deep and come out. You know, it's that spiral of you're always growing. You want to keep growing forever. And yeah, 50 was a big one. But now I feel like, I feel like I felt when I was 27, when everything, or younger, when you just want to sit with your friends and just talk about the meaning of life, and you just want to go deep, and you feel like you've got your whole life ahead of you and anything's possible. It's really a feeling, and it feels like a second round of that at 50. It's pretty cool.
Oh, man. Okay, first of all, I just need to say you're 57. You look amazing for 57. Like,
stop.
No, seriously, I'm like, okay, I'm excited about turning 50 if that's what I'm looking at. But no, you look amazing. And I love what you just said. Kind of going back to when you're in, mid 20s, I feel like even late 20s, early 30s, you're in that, let's go deep. Let's have these really in-depth conversations, none of that superficial kind of BS that we're in when we're in our teenagers, early 20s. And that's so great because, and we're going to dive deep into this, but you talk about this in your book, when you're in your 20s, you don't have all the resources and all the time and space to kind of do that. But once you're kind of past that and you're in your 50s, you're kind of invited to kind of go back into that kind of place. And now the obstacles and the different things that were kind of keeping you from kind of doing that in your 20s are no longer there. And I think that's so beautiful. You're glowing, man. This is so cool.
It is really a remarkable time. And I will tell you, I can tell you more about that, but I know you want to start with going back before we go forward.
Yeah. So let's go back to your childhood. I know that everything starts there. How was your upbringing? I know you did not grow up in Seattle. You grew up, if I'm not mistaken, Chicago, right?
Philadelphia.
Oh, why am I'm throwing things out all over the place?
I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, pretty regular, nice Jewish girl background. I had a younger brother and a sister. And on the surface, everything looked really terrific. But of course, never is what it looks like. My parents didn't have a very happy marriage. They split up right after I left for college. And there was a lot of, I think that is where you get your limiting beliefs start to take root. And so certainly mine were that I wasn't enough. Nothing I did was enough. Of course, I couldn't have known that my parents had a crappy marriage. So I was, doing a million things, and it really stuck. So I took that with me. And it's interesting because and I can talk about this too, but those limiting beliefs, man, you got to work on them your whole life. Sometimes they don't. It's like imprinting like a duck. It just goes in there, and you're really pushing back on that. So I grew up that way, and yeah, I ended up going to NYU to study film, which actually I had started off at Syracuse University and did a year there, and then took what is now known as a gap year. And by the time I went back to school as a sophomore at NYU, I was not really into the college thing. I was into the New York thing, and I was really into the music thing. All I wanted to do was be in clubs listening to music, like in the front next to the amps. Like I had to be. I wanted to absorb it. Um, so I started, that was what was really driving me. And of course, film, anything artistic, it was the early 80s. It was MTV was just happening. It was like you could really easily find your tribe just by looking for them. Like the people with the dyed hair and the pointy black boots, and you knew they, and the silver bangles. You knew they were your people. It was really much easier, in my opinion, to find them in that way. So I went through film school and during the day, and then went out to clubs every night and worked on St. Mark's Place and had a really fun time of it. And in my senior year of college, there was a way to do an internship through like a work study thing. And there was back when they had bulletin boards, real life bulletin boards, there was a thing on the bulletin board for an intern at Elektra Records. And I loved Elektra Records, and that was my dream job. So I went in, I called, it was December of, I don't know, whatever, 1983 or 82, I don't remember, 86, it was later. And I marched in there and I was like, I want to be I'm your intern, I'm your person. And the woman who hired me, who's now one of my dearest friends, she just looked at me and went, okay. I was not going to take no for an answer. And so I interned there for 4 days a week. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be the best damn intern she's ever had, so she has to hire me, which she did. And I had a really great run of it. I was at Elektra in New York for about 2.5 years. And then, yeah, something like that. And then we moved to LA. She moved to LA and she took me with her. So I worked for her there. And then she went to Geffen Records and I went with her there. But right around that time, I think I was just starting my Saturn return probably. And I was starting to think, what do I want to do? I love working with, but I need something more, need something deeper. So I decided I was going to go to school at Antioch University in California and get an MSW. And I've always really loved the idea of talking to people, helping people. And right when I was starting to do that, I got a job offer to run a production company in LA, run the music video division of. Oh, I should have said, when I was working at the label, I was working in the music video division. So I took my film and my love of film and my love of music and went there. And again, it was right when MTV was happening. It was 1986 when I first started. So it was, all things were possible. So I had been working in that part of the business for a while. And then I got this offer to run this, the music video division, and I was 27. And I thought, I can go back to school. This is a really good opportunity, so I'm going to do it. So one thing led to another. I was there. That company ended up folding. I got to take all the directors with me to another company. And my career was really growing. So right around that time, it was 92, I finally took myself on a vacation, like the first vacation, adult vacation at age 29, that I paid for myself to go somewhere fancy. And I went to Hawaii to visit a friend. And while I was there, the band Pearl Jam were playing. It was their first tour. And I knew them from the business and various other connections. And so I said to my friend, let's go see Pearl Jam. I'll get us on the list. And so we were there and we were backstage at that show. And this guy came up to me and said, and introduced himself. His name was Eddie Rayfelt, and he had film. I knew who he was. We didn't really know each other. And we chatted for a bit. And then he said, oh, I'll go get you girls a beer. And Jenny said, that guy likes you. And I said, well, he seems like a nice guy. She's like, no, that guy really likes you. She's like, you're going to marry that guy. And so one thing led to another. We started to date back when he was living in Seattle and LA. I was in LA. We dated for a year. We got engaged and I moved to Seattle. So that was that was another time where I thought, okay, I'm not sure if this is really what I want to do. Who do I want to be when I grow up? I just turned 30. What do I really want? Well, the thing I really love cooking. I want to learn more about cooking. Because I had grown up in my nuclear family in the 1970s, never eating a vegetable that wasn't a carrot or a celery stick. I mean, I literally never ate that. They were yucky to me. So I never tasted asparagus or broccoli till I was literally in my 20s. I grew up eating the standard American diet. So when I was in California in those LA years, it was very much the time of California cuisine, lots of fresh food, lots and lots of vegetables. And I started to change my palate and develop this love of cooking. And so I decided when I moved to Seattle with my husband, my soon-to-be husband, I was going to stop doing music video. I was not in LA anymore. I was in Seattle. I didn't think I could do it. So I got a job at a cooking store that did cooking classes in the back, so I could take the classes for free. And I really got into it. And right around that time, my husband was still in the music video business. There was a director that he knew who said, hey, do you think Lisa could look at my reel? Because I had been repping directors in Los Angeles. Do you think you could look and sort of weigh in and see what she thinks? And I looked at it and I said, you know what, this is really good. I could probably make a couple calls for you. Anyway, long story short, I'm at the cooking store on my gigantic cell phone with the huge antenna calling record companies, because the store was usually pretty quiet during the day, and making deals. And I thought, this is dumb. Like, I need to go back to doing this for a little while, and I can change it and make it be what I want it to be. So I started repping directors that had their own little companies, and I had a great 2-year run of it. And we did all kinds of fun things. I mean, you're too young to even remember like Hootie and the Blowfish and, Bon Jovi. So we did all those videos, and it was great. And so we've been married, and we really did want to have kids. And so I finally said to my husband, if I'm going to be holding the hands of children all the time, because my directors, God love them, the creative people, they can sometimes act like real children. I thought, if I'm going to hold their hands all the time, I'd like to hold the hands of children that are mine, actual children. So we decided, okay, we're going to start to have kids. We're going to work on that. So I packed it up. I had a massive identity crisis because I didn't know who I was going to be and what was happening. And we decided we were going to have kids. So right around that time, another dark night of the soul for me, I started getting really bad insomnia out of nowhere. I didn't know what was going on. And my regular Western doctor just gave me some sleeping pills. And I knew that wasn't right. And so somebody said, why don't you go see a naturopathic doctor? I had no idea what that was. So I went, and the first thing she said was, let's test your thyroid. So I had Graves' disease, as it turns out. And that was the beginning of a very, a long love affair with using food for healing and natural healing. Right around that time, we discovered that we needed to do in vitro. My husband had some stuff, and we needed to do in vitro, but I had to get my Graves' disease under control before a reproductive endocrinologist would do anything with me. And so, and the standard way to treat Graves' disease at that time, and it might even still be, is to swallow a capsule with radioactive iodine that burns up part of your thyroid. And they sat there and they say, it's very safe. We do it all the time. We do recommend that you check into a hotel after about 24 to 48 afterwards. Make sure you flush the toilet. Don't pet your dog or hug your kids. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't sound good. And why would I want to put that into my body right before I'm trying to do this whole in vitro thing? So that was a huge time. Like, I did everything I could to get into remission. I did 2 shamanic soul retrievals. I did, I learned about acupuncture. I brewed huge jars of stinky Chinese tea that I would drink all the time. I mean, I went gluten-free and dairy-free back before, this was in 1996. So there was no like, this is your gluten-free bread. It was more like, try some millet and grind it up yourself. It was not like it is now. So it took me about 18 months, and I did finally go into remission enough that I could go ahead and do in vitro. Oh, by the way, it's never come back. My Graves' disease, it stayed in remission. So my husband and I we embarked on the whole in vitro thing. We did it. It's very expensive. It was like $10,000. And he had just gotten a job at Microsoft running their studio. And because MTV was done, music videos were pretty much done at that point. So he had to reinvent himself too. And they gave you $10,000, and hugely generous benefit from Microsoft for whether it was for adoption or fertility or whatever. And so we used it, and we did in vitro. It was really intense, and it didn't work. And I was devastated. I went so low. I just kept thinking, why did it's like, why did God give me this body? I always thought I felt like my body had betrayed me. I felt so many dark feelings. And right around that time, my grandma passed away, and she left me $10,000. So we used that to do in vitro again, and we got pregnant. I got pregnant with my son Jake, which was amazing. I was like the happiest pregnant person you ever saw in the whole wide world. And so I really channeled all of my purpose, like all of what did I want to do, into having this baby and having a healthy baby and being a mom. So it was amazing. My son was born. I was 42 weeks pregnant. I was going to birth him. It was right when they're about to induce me. I had a midwife but it was in the hospital. My best friend was a labor and delivery nurse, and I wanted her to be part of it. And it was, all good intentions with the tub and the music and the whole thing. And it didn't. It crashed after 24 hours. But finally, 36 hours later, I had and a C-section. I had this 11-pound, incredible kid. So I threw myself into it. But I want to say that during that time, I didn't realize, I think what I thought, and what a lot of people might think when they become mothers, is that once I become a mother, I'm going to be me plus, like I'm going to be superwoman. And what you don't understand is that it's, at least for me and for many people I've spoken to, it's not that. You end up being, what happened to me? I'm this mother now, what happened to me? And so that kind of goes away, and I lost myself instead of finding myself. But I didn't know that right away. Anyway, we then had another kid with no in vitro. She was our miracle. It was, when we had gone to the reproductive people, they had said, I had said, can't we just keep trying naturally? And they said, you can try all you want, but it's never going to happen. You don't have what it takes. You got a 1 in a million chance. So my 1 in a million daughter was born about 22 months after my son. And again, fully threw myself into mothering and parenting, and it was amazing until, I guess, my kids, I was still, during all this time, I was still going to see music. My best friend was a bass player, and I would always go, and she'd go see her shows and all the other shows. And she was in a band, and one of the guys in the band with her had a production company, and he said, yeah, we love our company, but we really probably need to get somebody to kind of rep us. And I probably had a couple beers, and I was like, you should totally call me. I used to do that. I could do that. And then he called me, and I was like, oh, fuck, called me. Like, I guess I got to step up. And I went in to meet them, and I loved their company, and I loved these two guys, so much integrity, amazing little company. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to reach out to connections. I'm going to go out. I'm going to do it. This is I was like, I'm going to start my company. They'll be my only client. And that's what happened. And for the next 7 years, I worked with them, and it was amazing. And I got to work when I wanted to work. I totally had my own hours. I was still able to show up for my kids. It was pretty incredible. But all of that rolled up to the time, my most recent dark night of the soul, which was the turning 50. And, I would be up at this company. They would have, whenever I would go up there, they always had, they would bring in lunch for everybody. And so we'd all sit at this long table. There were probably 12 or 15 of us, and we'd all eat lunch together. And I loved that. The communal lunches were so great. But sometime when I was like 48 or so, I started to notice that I really didn't care I didn't really want to talk to these people about the latest equipment or what was happening. I wanted to talk about the universe. I wanted to talk about God. I wanted to talk about, I wanted to go deep. And I was with these folks, most of them guys, most of them at least 10 or 15 years younger than me. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. This is bullshit. So this was the beginning of my, who am I again? And so I had flirted with the idea of becoming a coach, and I loved Martha Beck. I had a big crush on her work, and I knew that she trained coaches, and I'd flirted with that website quite a bit. And so I suddenly decided, I'm going to do it. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to do it. So I dove in, and I said, I'm going to do this training. And somewhere in the middle of the training, as you're working it, you're using all the tools on yourself. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? This is so hard. This is so intense. I'm having to, because you have to walk your talk. You got to figure out your own stuff. And I was like, I feel like I'm on a life raft, in the middle of the fog with no oars. Like I've left land and I can't go back and I don't know where the land is in front of me. I can't see it. I can't do anything. I just got to be here. And it was hard. And I was turning 50 and everything was like, what have I done? Who am I? What the hell is going on? Anyway, I did reach land. Everything was much brighter. And by the time I actually turned 50, my sister called me on my birthday, said, thank God you're 50 because you've been turning 50 for 2 years and it's been killing me. Like, thank God you're finally here. And so, yeah, the rest is kind of, it all started to come together. I became a life coach. And then as I went and was really trying to pay attention to the things that light me up, I came back to my love of food for healing, which I had been cooking all the time when I lived here, but I really became passionate about that. And so I got a health coaching certificate from the Institute for Integrative Health, and then for nutrition rather, and then I ended up going further and getting another certification from the Academy of Culinary Nutrition, which is all about cooking specifically. And I should also say that my daughter, when she was 10, she's 20 now, she got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And so that is another thing that happened, is that our naturopath said, she should try an anti-inflammatory diet. And she did. She went off gluten, went off dairy, and it was miraculous. And because I didn't want her to be the only one in the family that did that, because my husband and my son were like, I'm not doing that, I did it with her again, because I had done it, back when all I could get was millet. And and clearly it's a very different situation now, but that too was part of my love and deep dive into nutrition for wellness as well. So I put all the things together, and I call myself, I decided I'm all about wellness, body, mind, and spirit. And that is how this current incarnation was born. And ultimately, that's how this book was born, which, I thought I'm going to put it all together. So that's a very long story. That was my upbringing plus.
Oh my God. First of all, I wish I could have been following you around when you were living in New York. Like, that's just like the best time. I wish I was born in the 80s and I was around at that time. I'm like trying to just take it all in, because on one end, I feel like the music just kept coming to you. Like, it was literally like the universe would just continue to bring it into your life. But on the other end, the minute that you decided that you wanted to start a family, the universe was like, wait, we have another thing that you have to pay attention to in this lifetime. And it didn't all come together until a lot later, but all the little things were just aligning perfectly for you to get to where you are now.
The universe is amazing. The universe does always have our backs. It took me a long time to figure that out, but when you put it out there, all the things that happened to me were, the universe and I co-created those. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I love that you said that. It's so true. I don't think we realize how much the universe does have our back. And when we can get kind of out of that egoic, why is this happening to me, and kind of be, oh, what can I learn from this? Everything switches, which you talk a lot about changing your perspective in your book. And that was something that I really, really loved. And I wanted to kind of go back on your journey. How did you, because when you told me that your grandma passed and she left you some money, for me, and this is my woo talking to the other side, I was like, oh my God, the grandmother totally called in the spirit of the baby. That's so magical. But I'm sure that when you went through that, I've never gone through it obviously, but I've heard it's not only a lot that you're putting into your body, but it's also emotionally such a roller coaster, because you were touching on that. You felt like your body was failing you. This isn't something you can control. You're literally surrendering to a process. And I feel like as women, there's this kind of identity of we are who brings life. So if you can't bring life, there is something wrong with me. What's wrong with me in all of this? How did you navigate through all of that while still being able to see this beautiful gift your grandma left you? Because I feel like most people, not everyone can be in a state where they can be open to that. It's more of just no, that was too much. Can't do that again?
Right. That's a good question. I think that was a huge process for me. You said the word surrender. I think surrender is definitely part of it. And I think that's a lesson that we all have to keep learning again and again when we're in it. I think the thing is that as you get older, sometimes it doesn't take you quite as long to figure it out. Like you're going, oh, right, here's that surrender thing again. But I didn't really know that at that time. I didn't recognize that. And so I don't know, like there was definitely, I think there was a grieving process. And then I think I let it go. I mean, I still wanted it to happen, but I was more prepared that if it didn't happen, I was still going to be a mother. And there were a lot of other ways that I could have made that happen. We were going to adopt, we were going to do whatever we needed to do. And so I think that was part of it too. It was a form of surrender and acceptance. And acceptance, not just to stop pushing so hard. It's like, what's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah, sometimes we want an outcome to be the way we want it to be, but when we're able to kind of just be like, all right, whatever's meant to happen is going to happen, things can really show up sometimes in the way that we wanted them to be without us knowing.
Yeah.
So food played a big role in your life, and that's something that I'm really intrigued about this, because you grew up eating the very sad standard American diet that sadly, I used to work for HelloFresh.
Oh yeah.
And it would break my heart because my mom's Hispanic, and I laugh because now as an adult, I'm like, oh wow, thank you for making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us as a single mom. But not everyone did that. Like, I say that as an adult, but as a kid, I was like, why can't you be like all the other moms and buy me a Lunchable? I just wanted the Lunchable. But I remember her, it was like a fight. I would want to sneak in cereal into the grocery store cart. And she was like, Andrea, this is not food. And I'm like, yes, it is, mommy. You just don't know it.
Oh my gosh.
It's sad though, because working through HelloFresh, I realized, wow, I ate very different. I thought it was normal the way that I grew up eating, but it was very different. So for me, eating vegetables was never like, oh, this is gross. It was just eating food. But it wasn't like that with everyone. And I'll have friends where I'm like, watermelon. I don't like watermelon. Watermelon? How do you not like watermelon? Or it's like pineapple. I've never had pineapple. Never had pineapple? Like, I still have a kind of a take back. I'm like, what? How did you literally, I'm sure that California played a role in that, but you grew up eating so different. And then when you started to shift into, okay, how can I help myself, because I don't want to take this medication that they're giving me, and this is the only way I can get the help that I need. This was way before everyone was talking about everything that's out now. That's why I'm like, you said it. I'm like, we have gluten-free bread, pita bread, English muffins. You can find everything now. They didn't have that back then. I mean, they didn't even have that when I was first diagnosed in 2008. So it's like, I can't even imagine in 1996. And you were literally doing it, I'm sure, without any, because now there's books everywhere. You can literally be like, anti-inflammatory diet, and you have 20 million books. Thyroid, 20 million books. That wasn't the case then. And this was pre-Google and all of this. How did you tackle that on?
Well, I had a really great naturopath. My naturopath was amazing. And so she had a lot of resources for me. You could find books, like you'd go find Laurel's Kitchen, and, which was, or the Moosewood, the vegetarian cookbooks were the best. And I'd still have to navigate like which grains I could eat, but they almost always had a chapter about, other grains that weren't wheat. Also, Seattle was a really great place to be for that, because, definitely, even though not LA, where there's almost a 12-month, year-long growing season, very long growing season here. The farmers markets here are amazing. And I really just dove into that whole lifestyle. I remember my family being like, why would you make your own jam? You can buy it in the store. It's because I know that it's going to be fresh. once you develop a palate for that, it really changes everything. We spent that other garbage that I grew up eating, the Hungry Man TV dinners and the frozen mac and cheese. It's built to make you crave it more, but it's not real food. And once you start to eat real food and you notice how it makes your body feel, I feel like there's no going back, really. At least for me, there wasn't. So I really did have to do some research. But once I went out there and I asked around, there were a lot of resources, and a lot of them were local, which was great.
So it just kind of like started to kind of trickle into you're putting that out there, it's coming into you. So, oh, that's interesting. Wow, you've been
Exactly.
manifesting. I want to talk about your husband. You guys, like, your friend knew you guys were going to get married and you had just met. Do you feel like on some level there was like some sort of manifestation there, or?
Probably.
Yeah.
It's funny. I went back in the last couple of years and I was going through some drawers and I found this list that I had written before I met him.
Oh my
And
God.
it was like, I called it at the time my life list. And I wrote all these things that I wanted to do. And I remember, I used to, when I lived in LA and New York, I dated a lot of skinny musicians who were like these, and I said, I want to find a guy whose jeans are bigger than mine. Finally, I want. And I kind of made a little list of the things, I want to marry and I want to find a man who is sensitive and can, like an emotional. I basically did conjure him and a lot of other things in my life. I knew I didn't want to live in LA forever, and I had come to Seattle a few times, and I knew I loved it here. So that was also part of the manifesting too. It was pretty cool. Right before I met my husband, I saw this psychic in LA. And she was she was a character. Anyway, she said to me at the time, she said, you're going to marry a guy I see he has something to do with computers. And I'm like, oh, terrific. Great. Yay. And she said, and you're going to live with his mother. No, you're not going to live with his mother. You're going to live in his mother's house. No, wait, no, not her house. Something to do with his mother. There's a lot of trees. There's a lot of pine trees, and there's a lot of trees. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I, like it felt like I was going to marry like the nerdiest guy in the whole world and like go live in, where. Anyway, when I met my husband and he was doing videos back in the, when you're producing a video, you're doing a budget, you're always on your computer. It's constantly, kind of like now, but this was long before everyone was on their computer. He was. And I thought, oh, well, there's the computer part. And then we moved to Seattle. His mom had passed away about a year and a half before we met. So I was like, I don't know what that's about, but okay, we're in Seattle. There's a lot of trees. And I forgot about it. A couple of years after that, Eddie's stepfather said, look, his mom had died very suddenly and at a young age, and had given her life insurance policy to her stepfather so that he could invest it in his business. But his stepfather turned around and said, look, I want to give you back this money that your mom invested into my business. It's yours. It was her life insurance. And that was how we bought our house. It wasn't enough. It was just enough to put down on a house. Like it wasn't enough to buy a whole house, but it was enough to get us in. So when I remembered that, I was like, oh my God. And then he got a job at Microsoft. So, it was like he was at Microsoft, I think I'd mentioned. So he was working in computers. And then we bought this house that was because of his mother. And it was pretty whack, huh?
Yeah, I'm just like, wait, what's his sign? What's your?
He's a Sagittarius.
I was like, had to be there. I'm like, there has to be some.
I'm a Gemini.
Okay, I was about to say, I'm like, you have to be a Gemini. I'm a Gemini, and I'm picking up like a lot of Mercury right now.
Oh God, yeah. I'm Gemini. He's 18 months to the day younger than me. So he's November 27th. I'm May 27th.
Dude, can we just talk about though Sagittarius and Gemini like together? You guys are like the most magical, like, because you can both manifest so much, like,
yeah,
with like so much
we
Jupiter,
do.
and then what a great combination. I totally got ahead of myself on that one, but I was so curious. Wait, what is that? You literally manifested him.
Yeah, I did.
Like without knowing what you were doing or anything.
And I think that when we remember to plug in and to trust, and to trust our own wants and needs, and to really, and to let them out and to give them air and to give them energy and to give them positive energy, and then let go of them. Like I did, I wrote it all down and I put it away and I forgot about it. And then it all happened.
That's so magical.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Cool.
that. That's so magical. So I want to go back into food a little bit. There's a lot of fad diets out there, paleo, keto. No, you should be vegan and do this one. And why aren't you pescatarian? And soy is good and soy is bad. And insert whatever else you've heard out there. What are your thoughts on labeled eating? I'm gluten-free, but I'm gluten-free for my health, not because
Sure.
it's trendy. But I will say I love when people tell me, they're like, oh, to lose weight. And I'm like, oh yeah, definitely do it to lose weight. It's so much fun buying $7 bread to lose weight. That's why I do it.
You know, labels are great for getting people to pay attention to possibilities, but you know, but I think they're mostly bullshit. I think, well, really, I guess it depends on why you do it. Like you said, there are some people, like I know several people who have MS or some kind of autoimmune condition, and they eat a keto-based diet because it, and they'll say, I eat a keto diet because it keeps my autoimmune disease in remission, because when I eat this way, it's amazing. So yeah, I'm keto, and here's why. Anytime you're going to go to a labeled diet for a weight loss, that's not going to work. You're going to lose. And I learned that the hard way, for sure. It doesn't work. It just makes you feel deprived, and then you want to go back. That said, there are some ways of eating, like for instance, when you do a Whole30, as long as you know why you're doing it, it's a fabulous experiment. You know, it's like a 30-day thing. You're going to get rid of these foods. You've got a lot of support. It's free. There's no special powders or whatever. And when I've worked with clients who have done that, I mean, I try from the very beginning. This is not about, you might not lose weight. This is not about weight loss. This is about learning to know what feels good in your body. It's liberation, frankly, for a lot of people who've never eaten any other way, that they've just always eaten standard. So, you know, I would say I don't put a label on how I eat. If I had to, I guess I would say, you know, paleo-ish, but I eat what I want. I eat what makes my body feel good. And for me, I feel a lot better when I don't eat refined sugar, when I don't eat gluten, and certainly when I don't eat dairy, because like, you don't want to be within 10 feet of me is all I'm going to tell you. You know, and then there's certain other foods too, but I notice I'm trying to pay attention to how I feel when I eat. And that's how when I work with my clients, that's what I encourage them to do as well.
I love that you said that. I feel like self-awareness and self-observation is really something that's not talked about a lot when we're talking about these lifestyle changes, not diet. I think it is a lifestyle change, and what works for someone might not work for someone else. Like I've been doing this bean protocol going on 7 months now, and I had a lot of resistance around it at first because you're supposed to drop fruit. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to drop fruit. I mean, I already do no sugar. So I don't know if I want to stop eating bananas and dates. I don't want to. And I did enough research, and just kind of like you, I was at a point where I was like, all right, the universe is pushing me here. There's nothing else. Either I listen or I don't know what's going to happen. So I've been on it, and it's interesting because anytime that someone talks about it, they're like, when are you going to start eating normal again? And I'm now at a place where I'm like, this is normal. Like, this new way of eating is normal. I know that once I hit my baseline, I can start incorporating fruit again, but I'm at a place where I didn't realize how much chocolate affected me. And
God, that's a bummer, eh?
and it's, you know, it sucks. I'm not going to say it doesn't. I'm not going to be like, oh yes, I miss chocolate. I very much don't like going to the grocery store right now because I'm just like, cool, can't do anything here. But it helps you realize what works for you and not necessarily what culturally is supposed to be for you.
Which is really hard because culture is loud and in your face all the time about all of that, about what you should eat, about how you should look, about, you know, which diet you should be on. It's, you know, it's like pushing a boulder up a mountain. It can be really, really hard, which is why it's just so important to connect your body and your mind right? Because your mind is the one that's telling you to do what the culture says. Your mind is the one that's telling you, it's okay to do this, that, and the other thing. Your body, once you start to plug in and listen to your body too and have a communication, then things can start to quiet down a little bit. And also, it's like when you do, like for instance, you say, you know what chocolate does to your body. It's not a life sentence. It's not like, oh, Andrea, you can never eat chocolate again. It's just that you know how it makes you feel. So it's your choice. Do you want to eat the chocolate or do you not? Like it's all, knowledge is power, right? And I'm not going to say that I'll never eat a croissant ever again in my whole life. I might. I just have to feel like I have to really want it. It's your worth it bar, and it shifts and changes. And as we get older, this is something I've learned a lot too. As we do hit midlife, your body changes again, and your hormones kick up again, or should they say they kick out, because they're going in a different direction. And you really do, what has always worked for you maybe won't work anymore. Like for me, I needed to really stop drinking red wine. I love red wine. And it's, what do you mean red wine? It's full of, good antioxidants. It's good for you. They all, it's heart healthy, blah, blah, blah. Except that I would drink red wine and I wouldn't be able to sleep and I would have hot flashes. So I stopped. Every now and then I might have a glass of red wine, and sometimes it'll be fine. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, right, that's why I can't do that. Or why I choose not to do that, I should say. So, yeah.
I love that you just brought that up. I stopped drinking for a really long time for health reasons. And then my doctor was like, you can start drinking. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right, awesome. And I had been on so much medication that while I was given a go, my liver was not wanting that. And I remember I probably was able to drink for like 3 months. It wasn't even that long. And the last time, I still remember I went out with my friend and I had French fries and a beer. It wasn't even like I had like a bunch of, it was like a beer and French fries, and ended up in the hospital for a week.
Oh no.
But they gave me, and we were talking about choice. My doctors were very honest with me. They're like, look, your liver's not happy. You have an option. You can either drink, which is not going to do good. You're going to end up having to get your liver replaced, or you can stop drinking. The reality is you haven't drank for the last 7 years and you just started drinking for the last 3 months. So it's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And you can have French fries from time to time. And I was in a place where I was like, you know what? I partied a lot when I was 18. I partied when I was 16 when I wasn't supposed to be legally drinking, but whatever. I did enough. I had my fun. I'd rather eat my French fries now every once in a while than have a beer and feel like crap and then have to do all of this. So I feel like it is empowering. A lot of people view it like it is a death sentence. For me, it is empowering because you're an adult and you get to decide. But with that decision, this is the consequence of whatever it is I decide to do, and not shame yourself for whatever you decide to do. If you want to drink, instead of eating French fries, drink.
Yeah.
No one's going to say anything to you. Do you?
No, shame never works. But truly, there's something about hitting the middle years where it really does. You're like, this is not worth it. Because if I don't sleep, if you miss a couple nights sleep in your 20s or even in your 30s, it's really different than when you're in your 50s. It's just, it impacts your entire day. It can impact you for days. And you really start to go like, that doesn't, this is not how I want to be and feel or show up in my life. So,
It's interesting that you say that. I've been trying to get my mom off dairy for a long time. And it went in one year, it always went out the other year. And it wasn't until last year when she finally hit 50 that I was like, Mom, you know that a lot of your phlegm and all of these things that you complain about, they're all related to dairy. And it somehow finally hit. And she's like, oh, I'm going to stop eating dairy. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been saying this for like, I don't know how long. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're finally doing it.
That's funny. And good for her. That's
right.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you could say anything to a 30-year-old you, what would you say? And more of with turning 50. And I'm going to kind of give people back end. Right before we started, I started telling Lisa that last year when I turned 30, I realized, oh my God, I turned 30. And then in 20 years, I'm 50. And it hit me because it's like, you're supposed to have kids in the next like 5 to 10 years. And then the kids graduate. And then that's it. That's all you have. And it was like this moment of freak out. And when I'm talking to my mom, she's like, you don't have kids. I don't know why you're getting ahead of yourself. But it was this almost like, oh my God, time is precious for the first time. Apparently 29 and below, it wasn't precious, but the minute I heard 30, it was precious. So what would you say to that 30-year-old you? Because you mentioned your sister was like, you've been turning 50 for 2 years. Please just turn 50 already. So that kind of coming to that isn't so shaming and embarrassing. It's more of like, because you have made 50 and like, I'm excited. I don't want to turn 50 yet. There's still a lot to do in those 20 years, but I'm like excited now. I'm like, man, there's a lot to look forward to in 20 years from now.
There's a lot to look forward to. And I would say the same, there's a lot to look forward to for me 20 years from now. You know, my mom's 80 and she's kicking it. You know, I mean, there's, you know, she's got a boyfriend, she's doing her thing. I mean, you know, there's always a lot to look forward to. But if I could say anything to my 30-year-old self, I think I would tell her to slow the fuck down. I would say, sweetheart, slow down, take some breaths, look around you, look at the life you're in, look at the life you've created. You can do anything you want, but for now, just take a breath and look around, slow down, and for God's sake, be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be your own best friend. That's what I would tell my 30-year-old self. For sure.
I just felt that to like the core.
Yeah.
So you have two beautiful kids, and
I do.
One of them is 20, the other one is 18 months older. So, you know, they're both in their early 20s.
Yeah.
What did they, when you wrote this book, what were their thoughts? Like, were they like, Mom, this is so inspiring? Or was it kind of like, oh man, I didn't think 50 was a big deal. Like, I'm curious as to that new generation. And
my kids are awesome. I mean, my kids are amazing. They really are. We're really close still. I'm so grateful for that. My kids are super proud of me, very encouraging. My daughter is always, you know, sharing my stuff on social media, and she and I talk every day. And my son too. He's 23. He's 23. No, he's 22. He'll be 23 this year, and she'll be 21. Yeah. So, and they're both sort of close. She's in Oregon. I'm in Seattle. She's in Corvallis, Oregon, and he's in Bellingham, Washington. So he's not far. You know, he's closer than she is. But they're so supportive, and they have told me multiple times that my transformation has been inspiring to them. So that means everything to me.
That is beautiful. What are their signs? I'm curious.
My son is a Leo, and I think my daughter is a Cancer. I think she's got Sagittarius rising. I wrote it down somewhere. I think she's a Sag rising, and I think my son also has some Sag in his thing too. She's a Cancer. So Cancer, Sag rising, and he's Leo, something I can't remember exactly. But yeah, he's not a typical Leo. So, you know, he's not at all, at least a typical Leo son. I can't remember. So, but I couldn't be luckier. I'm just so, I'm blessed. I'm grateful to you went away. Sorry. Sorry, nobody did. I feel so, grateful to the universe for giving me the exact teachers that I needed in my life.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Well, we normally have a tradition on the Journey Within where I like to end the interview by asking everyone their sun sign, moon sign, and rising. But I got ahead of it because I was like, wait, I'm like really curious right now. Do you know your rising and moon, by the way?
I do. I'm a Gemini sun, Cancer moon, Aquarius rising.
Ooh, oh, so right now Aquarius energy is like right up your alley. Oh man. Okay, that Cancer moon plays off with your daughter's Cancer. Okay, that's interesting.
It does, and it also for me always played off with why I was so into creating a home and being very much and cooking and nurturing and is around, nothing makes me happier than a table full of people that I love, like a gathering that I can feed and nurture and talk. I mean, that is my ultimate, that's what I want eventually. It's to continue to happen for the next 20 years and to end up that way where there's a place where I can continue to create gathering spaces for people where we can talk about all the things.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to kind of hear what comes up in the horizon for you, Lisa. I mean, you're a Gemini living your design. So I'm really, really pumped to see what comes out the next
Me
10 years for you.
too. Me
Well,
too. Yeah, this book is just the beginning. It's just who knows what's going to happen now.
I was about to say, I'm like, I feel like this is just like a drop in the water. And before, like, in like 2 years, I'm gonna be like, what? What? Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, tell us your beautiful story, and share with us such a beautiful part of your life.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun. I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Really, so much.
Oh, awesome. And then where can people find you?
Yeah, so people can find me on my website, which is audaciouswellness.com. You can also find me on Instagram because I always have a good time. And on Instagram, I am the Lisa Levine. And I changed it because when I had the book coming out, I decided I really wanted to focus some attention on the fact that I was an author. And let me tell you, there's a lot of Lisa Levines out there. So I am the Lisa Levine on
Oh, I
Instagram.
like that.
Yeah, and so those are the two places I play the most,
Okay.
and Facebook.
Awesome. So we'll go
Yeah.
ahead. Everyone, now you know if you want to connect with Lisa, watch her in her zone of genius, go Instagram route. And if you want to go and work with her as a client or buy her book or anything, go to her website.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, I hope you have a magical rest of your week and that the lunar and solar eclipse of this year from last year, you and your husband, I need to check in with you after that to see what came around for that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. And you have a wonderful rest of your week too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.